What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Black and White Bodybuilding, where nothing is black and white except for your hosts. My name is Logan Schultz. This is Paul Conyu. Paul, as usual, how's your last 7 days been?
Pretty nice. Weight's going up steadily, but I'm also spending a bit more time with my family, like going out, doing stuff. Like I think for me, off season, it's kind of like that relaxed time because you're not have to be like on a crunch kind of thing. So I usually spend a lot of the time, especially last week, just going out, doing things with my son, my wife. Last week we went to like a place called Dino World because my son suddenly got into like roar. He starts doing the whole like dinosaur thing. So like every so often he's gonna be like roar. Let me watch some dinosaurs. So I'm like, okay, cool. So we took him there. He had a good time. But when we got there, he was super scared of the dinosaurs. And I was like, what the hell, man? You've been roar this entire time. And now you don't want to do dinosaurs. So did that over the weekend. Chilled. Yesterday I got back to training. I've been training. My training day starts on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then I'm off for the rest of the week till like Friday. But now I'm just here.
All right. Well, let's see. We spent the last 2 weeks traveling between Italy, France, and Spain.
Nice.
It was awesome. We got upgraded rooms at a couple of the hotels, and in Florence, they actually gave us we had a room with this large balcony that overlooked like the city and the ocean.
Oh,
So it
wow.
was like like you could see both, and it was very beautiful, man. It was amazing. Ate a lot of food. I'm up like 10 pounds.
I think that's why Barry was just like, let's pull back carbs a little.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest. I think that had we not have gone to Spain,
Mm,
I probably would have come back the same weight or even lighter.
mm,
Because once we got to Spain is when I started to see all the vascularity fading,
mm,
and I knew that my weight was coming up. So what ended up happening is that like when you're in Florence, Rome, and Nice, those cities are much smaller, and so you
mm,
can walk everywhere. But Barcelona is a much larger city. So it's like there's monuments everywhere, and our hotel wasn't centrally located.
mm.
Um, so it would be like an hour walk to somewhere. And so we would just taxi there, right? And then you would walk around that area, and then we would taxi to somewhere else. But even then, it was still like it just wasn't near as many steps.
Yeah.
Um, and then the food didn't quite taste as clean, I guess you could say. It was still better than the U.S. as far as
Mm,
like how fresh it tasted, but it wasn't as like it was in Italy and in France, if that makes
mm.
sense.
Yeah.
It was a little bit more like there was a lot more Americanized food in Barcelona, and a lot more like entire restaurants just based on like an American roast.
Probably because of tourist, maybe.
Probably, if I had to guess. But yeah, I mean, I still had some like good paella and stuff like that. It was delicious. So, do you know what paella is?
No,
Okay,
first time
so
hearing about it.
it's like Spain's. It's the dish they're known for. It's basically a rice dish. It's kind of like chicken fried rice, but it's not. They do it. Their traditional one is just like a seafood one with like shrimp and scallops and clams and stuff like that. But it's
Mm,
basically just this big, really large rice dish. So we had some quail and mushroom one that was delicious. But yeah, other than that, it's kind of. I got back Sunday. We came back a day early because 2 weeks is just a little too long to be gone.
yeah.
Um, so we came back a day early. I just kind of rested yesterday. I was, like I told you, I was pretty sick. So yeah, got the game plan from Barry today as far as, pulling back for the next week or two and what we're going to do with drugs and then pushing into the off season and everything like that. So pretty excited.
Nice. Yeah, it seems like you're holding everything pretty solid. I think I like saw the picture. It was just a little bit of watery plus from
Yeah.
the traveling. So by probably Friday, it should be gone.
Yeah, I would expect, I mean, Yeah, it's mostly like you can see that my stomach is expanded, but my abs are still pretty lean
Yeah.
in it. So the lines just aren't as deep, and so you can kind of tell that it's kind of intestinal, and then some water weight. So I'm not worried about it. It'll come off within a couple of days. I mean, today being back on plan, I'm already getting hungry again,
Mm.
which is nice. I was ready to get back on plan, to be honest. So
Yeah. I mean, it was nice to kind of get outside the country a little bit and just have like a little bit of like a, I guess, a relaxation time in a way.
yeah.
It's always nice. That's one of the things that I usually do is like every so often we'll travel somewhere and just stay there for like a few days or like a week.
Hmm.
Next month we're going to Turkey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, gonna have a resort all you can or like a all you can whatever resort or
Yeah,
whatever.
all
So my
inclusive.
son's going and we picked like a place that has like a lot of like kids section.
Okay.
So he's gonna be just like going crazy the entire time. And that's gonna be pretty nice. I think when I had like my thought when I wanted like a kid was just like, okay, I never got the chance to travel anywhere. So if I have a kid, we're gonna go to a lot of places. So he's been in
Yeah.
Dubai, he's gonna be in Turkey, been in Poland, been in Vienna. So he's been to a whole list of places already. So that's nice. Yeah, I love
Yeah, that's
traveling.
awesome. We never did much traveling when I was a kid either. I mean, we did do like vacations, but they were like camping at the state
Mm.
park, or there was another park that we would go to. There was a couple of parks that we would go to, but it was all within a few hours of Livingston, or it was visiting my family in Dallas or Austin, right? Like, or it was
Mm.
spending the weekends on the lake on a boat. But we never. I mean, the first time I saw another state was my freshman year. I was dating some girl, and her parents let me go with them to Arkansas. But other than that, I'd
Oh,
never even
nice.
visited another state, and I didn't even.
Yeah.
I don't even think I left the state until like my wife and I went on our first vacation to Colorado. So,
Yeah. So like funny story about that. So like I'm originally from West Africa and I came
mhm,
to the US in like 2002. Um,
mhm,
I've been just in the US for about 20 something years without traveling out of nowhere because I had like a green card residency. So like I knew I could travel, but it was just such a fucking bitch to try to get my passport, which is not a United States passport. So it's like it's a pain. So like I met my wife in 2020 and
mhm,
during COVID timeframe we couldn't travel anywhere.
yeah,
So I could travel to Mexico because it's like it's close by to the United States. I could use like my green card to travel there and be okay. But I never really was into the traveling aspect of things till I got my US passport. And
yeah.
then it was just like, all right, man, let's fucking do this shit.
It's
So it took me like 20 something years just to get out of the United States.
a long time. But
Yeah.
so do you travel with a U.S. passport now?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I became a citizen in 2021.
Okay. So
Yeah.
are you a citizen of Poland too?
No, I'm a citizen of the US, but in Poland, I have like a Polish residency card,
Okay.
which allows me to stay here for up to 3 years, which I can potentially renew as well. Because
Okay.
my wife and I are married, so it gives me that 3 year time frame. And one of the causes was like, hey, I'm here to help raise my child, which I am. So
So I know like so they don't give you residency since you married a somebody.
not like right away. I think you have to like maybe stay here for like 3 years, and then the second time you like, I guess renew the residency kind of
Okay.
thing. You can apply for that around like the 5 or 6 years, and then they
Okay.
give you residency afterwards. But you have to know the language, and Polish is a very hard language.
Ooh.
It's
Yeah.
kind of why I have to like go to different countries to donate blood.
Hey, you can do it yourself like I do.
I could, but I'm an idiot.
It's sketch. It's sketch. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Nobody do that. I'm stupid. Okay.
How did that go? Did it turn out okay?
Yeah. It's
Oh,
been
okay.
fine. I've done it twice.
Hmm.
The second time was a lot better. I'll say that.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's surprisingly easy. Like
Mm.
it's not it's not as hard as what you would think it is. Yeah, it kind of just slides right in. It's like, oh well, it's going. The hard part is like ideally you would be able to tape it down, but with nobody helping you, you kind of have to hold it there the entire time. Because I'm like worried about like moving around and it slipping out and then squirting everywhere. So I just like sit there and hold it. And
Yeah.
then when I'm done, I have my wife come in and put an alcohol pad on it and apply pressure. And then I remove it and then take over. Because she wants nothing to do with it. It grosses her out big time.
Yeah.
So,
oh God.
So yeah, it's super sketch. I don't advise anybody to do it. Actually, you don't do it. I'm
Don't
stupid.
do it. Don't do it at all.
Yeah.
So like, you know how like we use gear and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is gonna sound so silly. We use gear and everything. Personally, I fucking hate needles.
I mean, I don't particularly like them, but they don't like bother me anymore, I guess you could say.
They still bother me. Like once like contest prep is over, I'm just like, thank God, thank God.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that. Especially during contest prep. It's like,
Yeah, it's like
for
a
me,
needle in a haystack.
every day, and sometimes it's 2-3 times a day. And you're like,
Oof. Yeah, it's
in between GH, insulin, like I'm a super
peptides.
pasty white guy, so I gotta inject melanotan as well. Like,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's still a little too much. Like I still can't get over it. Like every time I do it, I still get like, why am I doing this again? What's going on?
yeah, I got over that pretty quick. I feel like occasionally it'll still like my body physically won't like it, and that's always kind of weird. But for the most part, it is what it is at this point.
Yeah. I mean, typically during prep, I just like like right now, I can't wait for this whole rebound phase to be over because when it does, I'm just gonna be like, just once or twice a week.
How much longer are y'all gonna run it?
I got till March 10th.
Okay, so you got 4 weeks more.
Yeah,
4 more weeks. So y'all are doing 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm already up to like 30 pounds, relatively pretty lean in terms of body composition. And I've been sore like so right now, I'm sore, hungry, and sleepy.
What a great combination.
Yeah, it just means I'm growing. That's how I look at it.
For
the
sure.
last time I was like this sore was back in 2021. After I got my pro card in 2020, I was just pushing really, really hard, and I put on like 15 pounds of tissue. So, I'd be interested.
That's nice. After this, I actually do need to go train. But I'm in the process of throwing together what my training is going to look like. I know I'm going to train 5 days, and it'll be like it'll be legs, push, pull, off, and then posterior chain, arms, off. So I know the split. I just have to figure out what movements and stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and start with pull today because I think I want to take off on like Sunday, and I want Sundays to be off. So kind of adjusting my schedule like that. But hell, let's talk about my off-season cycle.
Yeah, I was about to say I wanted to go over like your training, but I was gonna ask like, does Barry do your training or you do your own training?
I do my own training. Barry generally just weighs in on how many days I'm training, and then like he suggested this split. He originally had a 4-day split. It didn't have arms, but I kind of told him like, if I don't have an arm day, I kind of slack on them because I end the workout with them so they don't get as much effort. And he's like, yeah, that's fine. Like, we can have an arm day. He's like, I kind of look at it like a rest day anyways. Like, it's really not that taxing. And it's not.
Agree.
So, yeah, I don't know. Obviously, I'll ease back into it. Like, I did train one day while we were in Barcelona. And everything felt heavy and it was just weird moving again and having tension on everything. I mean, it's been like, 10 days, 12 days at that point since I had trained. And I was sore the next day, even though I barely did anything. So I'm going to ease back into it. I'll probably go at like 70% and then increase that, each week. It'll probably be like 70, 85, 100, something like that over the next couple weeks. Huh?
So pretty solid. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll auto regulate that if I feel like I need more time, then I will before I'm like pushing hard.
Mm,
I don't think I will though. I think it'll be pretty quick. Um, but yeah, I am gonna have Barry weigh in a little bit more on my training. So once I put together everything that I plan on doing,
mm.
as far as like movements and how much volume is allocated, I'll send it to him and just get his opinion on it.
Yeah.
So we'll go from there.
Nice. So what's your off-season plans gonna look like?
So obviously clean up for a week or two, but we're gonna go. He said every other day. I'm not doing every other day. I'll do it twice a week or 3 times a week. We'll see. But it basically 525 test, 350 EQ, and 525 DECA.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but knowing that so normally we start out and it's like normally I've done like 900, 800, and 800.
Mm-hmm.
But we know that EQ absolutely destroys my estrogen. So we are also going to add in 5 milligrams of trestolone in
Okay.
a day to help keep my estrogen within range
Mm-hmm.
while being on the EQ. Hopefully, I don't have to take those doses up too much further than that, to be honest. I don't really want to, but
Mm-hmm.
if I stop growing, then I will. We also might be sprinkling in some anadrol here and there. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we'll see about that. It'll be short spurts of it, basically up until appetite gets suppressed, which, based on what he was saying, somewhere around like the 2 week mark is generally when he sees appetite go. We'll probably be like adding it in and then removing it for a little while, adding it in to get through another plateau or something like that.
Solid.
So I haven't used Anadrol since I was like 22, so I want to give it a go again, see what happens. Because I mean, truthfully, back then I don't even know if my gear was good.
Yeah. Usually around that time most people did it.
Yeah,
It's kind of
and
crazy.
now I know that I'm getting good stuff. So the only other thing we're going to do is we are going to experiment with the Retta. We discussed that on the last episode. So I'm going to run that at 2 milligrams a week. That's not going to go up. It's just going to stay there, and we're going to see if it causes a change.
Yeah, that'll be pretty interesting. I was like trying to use it during I used it like the first few weeks after post contest, and I was like, okay, I want to kind
Yeah,
of keep on using it, but I was like, you know what? No, my appetite's already kind of crazy. I'm just gonna let it ride out. I just have to make sure I move around consistently so I can keep on eating a lot more food, but just stay
yeah.
leaner and just tighter overall as everything else is kind of going up. Um, so yeah,
My
I'm
biggest
just
concern with coming off in the rebound would have been your appetite spiking even higher.
yeah, yeah.
Did you have that effect?
It's hard to say, man, because I have like a big appetite. Like when I was on it
Okay.
during contest prep, like it just made me not eat more than I have to. So like if I had to eat like 2,500 calories just to kind of do whatever, I eat 2,500 calories. I don't eat anything more. I don't like crave like the food thought of like, oh, I want to eat more
Hmm.
food and like binge or whatever. It was just like, okay, 2,500 calories, cool, I'm done. And I just kept on moving. But once the prep came out, it's hard to tell because I did sort of like taper it off, but my appetite is just insanely big. Where like I just with it on or without it, I would just still eat regardless. So it didn't really matter that much because I was
Yeah,
pounding food like crazy. But then I was also
yeah.
using like I think 250 milligram micrograms per um, per week essentially, and then I bumped it up to like
250
500.
micrograms per week.
Yeah, I didn't
Oh
really need
wow.
to use like a lot for that one because I just tried to kind of like control my appetite for like the contest prep. I didn't want to like
Yeah,
completely like crash, and then after contest prep, I was just around like 250 to 500. Yeah,
yeah,
I always think like just starting relatively like less with those is much better because you don't get like the extra side effects that would come with it right off the bat. That's why like when you said
hmm.
like 2 milligrams, I was like, oh, it's a little high.
Well,
I
two
just need to be
from my
dosed once a
understanding,
week.
honestly I was thinking that it was going to be lower. But that's what he said, and I know that 2 milligrams is technically. Um, I don't think 2 milligrams is not the starting dose clinically. I think it's 4. I think I might be wrong on that. Um, but I do know that some of the people that have been touting it say 2 milligrams is a good starting point.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like this is a little high. I mean, we already here's how I look at it. We already have a very good understanding of like food, what we shouldn't
mhm,
eat, what we should or shouldn't eat. We're not like completely overweight, so we're not like a trial individual. We have
mhm,
experience with like our calories, how to manage food and stuff like that. So it's just giving that little edge.
yep,
And I think 2 milligrams might be like where somebody who's like kind of overweight would like start off just to kind of like destroy the
yep,
appetite completely at the start. But if you're just like somebody who have like very good knowledge of food, how to manage your appetite, how to do everything and stuff like that, and yet we have like previous experience from just
mhm.
dieting, just trying to keep the edge just where it needs to be. I think you can go a little lower, but I don't know.
Yeah. To me, it's not so much. I think the reason that I want to experiment with it, it's not so much about the appetite control. I don't really
Mm,
care about that. I don't really have a big appetite, anyways.
okay.
So that portion doesn't really worry me. I'm more so interested in um, it keeping me more insulin sensitive,
Okay.
um, and managing that aspect of things as I push into the off season and as I put on weight. Right.
Mm,
That's really what I'm mostly interested in it for. Um, and then I have to look more into it, but there seems to be some kind of synergies between uh, the way that it works and then at IGF levels and growth hormone or something like that. I briefly read something about it, and I haven't dug into it enough to know, to be honest with you. But either way, I feel like as a coach, if we're going to have somebody, if somebody asks us about it and they want to use it, we kind of need to have some firsthand experience in using it, right?
agree. Yeah.
So I'm going to try it out in a off-season setting when contest prep isn't, looming, and I'm not
Mm,
risking, adverse side effects first. So
yeah. Agree. Yeah, my experience with it was just sort of just it kept everything under control,
yeah,
and I kept it at started off at 250. I think comes in like 5 milligrams, and I just was like just kind of like splitting up to that particular dose, and then I bumped it up to 500 as the peak.
okay,
Kept appetite quite under control because I'm typically used to just like I binge during prep. I'm not gonna lie that to anybody. I binge during prep, but this prep I didn't binge, and I end up winning. So there you go.
huh? Imagine that.
What a twist!
Fucking fuck you, Paul. Fuck you. Fuck you, Paul. Jesus Christ.
but, but yeah, but I think like I think the one question I have is like if it does reduce insulin sensitivity, is there a need to even if you were to use insulin, would there be a need to use insulin?
I mean, I don't ever think that there's necessarily a need to use insulin.
Yeah.
Um, I think, okay.
This is just saying if it like helps with insulin sensitivity.
Yep,
I know there are some people who may be running insulin just to kind
yep.
of get a little bit more growth, but if the insulin levels are low, you're already kind of like at a low blood glucose level because of the RETA. It wouldn't kind of make sense to utilize insulin, or maybe it would. Who knows?
Yeah, so I think this is where I need to do a little bit more learning, to be honest with you, in
Mm,
understanding glucagon. Um, but yeah, potentially I could see that. Now, when it comes to insulin, and in my opinion, I know that there's a large amount of people out there that like to use long acting insulin like Lantus and stuff like that. And that's perfectly fine. It's not what I want to do, and it's not
okay.
the way that I like to look at the use of insulin.
Mm,
I more so use it in the aspect of timing it to so that I can eat more food. So like in essentially just allowing it to help my pancreas. So
reduces the extra stress
yeah,
from
yeah, yeah, yeah.
glucose.
So but really kind of peri workout so that I can push a little bit more food and not over stress the pancreas, right?
Yeah.
That's really kind of how I've historically used insulin and kind of how I think it should be used. I don't really like the notion of adding in a long acting. Um, I just never have. I've never been convinced of its benefits. Um,
Unless you're like type 1 or type 2
sure,
diabetic.
absolutely,
Yeah,
right?
that's,
Absolutely. That's a completely different story.
yeah.
Um, but I'm not, right? And so
Mm.
when I do use insulin, it's generally specifically like pre-workout, for that extra, so that I can have some extra food in and push some extra calories into the muscle, right? Um, but yeah, theoretically, no. I mean, you shouldn't really need any more. Um,
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see if I experience
Hypo.
hypo where I need to add in more food.
Which would probably be a good thing. It means
I
like your
agree.
insulin sensitivity is really good, and at that point, you can grow even further with just adding a little bit more food just to help leverage that
Yep,
out.
I agree. It would be an ideal scenario if I were to go hypo.
Mm.
Um, I guess we'll find out. I don't know.
Yeah. So like, I usually do like paid consult with my previous coach,
Uh-huh.
Archa, who works with Team Evil GSP.
Yep.
Every other week or so, I have like a list of questions that I want to ask him, really how to like kind of like figure out situations. This dude is like fucking like he's like a walk-in encyclopedia, so it's like cool. It's
Yeah.
completely awesome. So one of the questions I asked him was about particularly like insulin and how to utilize it for like fasted cardio. Um, Definitely not ideal for fasted cardio, but the one scenario where it may help is you take like a smaller amount and you just have some glucose with it. So it's not like a lot of amount. I'm trying not to give out the numbers, but like a very minimal amount. And then you would utilize that just to give you a little bit more pump, a little bit more training, more focus. That way you're not going like hypo during the training session. But it's kind of like you do. I think I think Barry may have implemented that, but I don't know.
So you're talking about fasted cardio or fasted training?
Both,
Okay.
actually.
So I know that I have actually, okay, not per my coach's instructions. I did this on my own. Okay. I have before played around with adding in 1 or 2 IUs of insulin pre-fasted cardio. I only did 1 or 2 because generally the body is pretty good at regulating that, and
Mm,
glucagon allowing us to release liver glycogen to make up for it, right? It's pretty good at maintaining that. I never did it very consistently. It would be like I tried it 1 or 2 times,
yeah,
right? Um, so I can't say like, oh, this made a big impact, right? But I will say during fasted cardio, if you're going hypo, I mean, you're probably putting in some work and you're getting to the place that you need to be.
yeah, that too. I thought about using it that way, but what I've been doing sort of is like I would wake up. It's kind of like the long way of doing it. I would wake up in the morning. This is why I go for walks for about
Hmm.
an hour,
Hmm.
and then I'll walk for an hour, so that automatically reduces blood
And then you're
glucose.
doing your cardio afterwards.
Yep. Well, that I do my cardio afterwards, but if there are some days where like things are crazy and I have to like manage other stuff. I have to go to the gym early. I would walk for an hour, come home, have like a Gatorade or like just a pure powdered carbohydrate drink,
Hmm.
and then go train. So like my insulin levels or glucose levels are already really or relatively down just from the walking, plus from sleeping and then just bringing that elevator back down. So like you're kind of in a state where it's like it's much safer that way
Hmm.
without risk of going hypo. Like when you go train and you have those carbohydrates back in you, it sort of just kickstart everything so you get like a much more better quality pump. Which
Yeah.
you can kind of do the exact same for fasted cardio, but if you're fasted walking, it kind of defeats the purpose. But instead of like focusing on you would do like the fasted walks in the morning, which would basically tap more into like fat storage in a
Hmm.
sense. And then when you're done that, you can target more of the glucose storage by just doing like a very hard level of cardio, which will eventually just get you a little bit leaner and sharper and have you just drop body fat in a fasted state. About fucking like an hour and a half maybe with an hour walk plus that 30-minute fasted cardio. That's kind of what I did during prep.
You got to have some time on your hands, dude. Because
Dude, I wake
I
up
can
at
tell you
4 o'clock in
now,
the morning.
I can't do it. What time do you wake up?
4 o'clock in the morning.
4? Yeah. I mean, yeah, even if I woke up at 4, by the
Yeah.
time I was done walking, like let's say in theory I could get out of the door within 10 minutes.
Mm.
I more than likely could, but I also have to let out my dogs
Yeah, that's
and then
true.
put them back up, right? And get dressed and everything like that. Let's just say 10 minutes, right? So then I'm back by 5:10. Then I've got, let's just say 30 minutes of cardio. I'm on the treadmill within the next 5 minutes, 5:15. So now we're looking at 5:45 by the time I'm done. I got to go shower and I got to be out of the house by 7. So it's like, then I got to cook my food and then get my food ready for the day, right? So that's a lot.
Mm.
It just wouldn't fit with my time frame, I guess you could say. So I
It's
walk a lot
definitely
throughout
not
the day.
like for everyone. Yeah,
No,
it's like
yeah.
it's definitely not for everyone. But like, I guess my situation's a little different because like my son and my wife are sleeping and they wake up at like 7:30 ish. So if I wake up at like 4, especially during like contest prep, wake up at
Mhm.
4, get that walk. Because to me, walking doesn't feel like, I don't know. It's just I enjoy it, you know.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy to walk for a full hour and just listen to a podcast, and then I can just go
Mhm.
smash some cardio. But like walking, I don't like consider as like cardio anymore
Mhm.
these days. So it's more of like that 30-minute of cardio, and then I knocked everything out. By the time I'm done, I'm already at like 15K steps. But yeah, it's definitely a scenario if you have that kind of time management skill to be able to do that. It's not something like everyone should do.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you can fit your lifestyle, and then absolutely great. If for me, I would on the weekends I would do something similar in that if I had cardio, I'd probably wake up and do the cardio, and then I would eat, and then I would go walk
Mm,
until my wife woke up. And in that case, I would probably already have 5,000 steps in, and my cardio's done, and now she's waking up, and we're going about whatever it is on the weekend.
yeah.
But I would eat because mostly I have very specific times that I eat, and if I don't stick to those times, I see fluctuations in weight pretty heavily. And so when I'm checking in with Andrew on an everyday or every other day basis, it's like, well, I ate all of my meals an hour later and I went to bed an hour later and my weight's up 2 pounds.
Mm.
Right. So it's like if I just kept it consistent, it made it much easier.
This is one of those things where it's like, I don't want to be like, oh yeah, I don't have that issue.
Hmm.
Maybe I do. I just don't like think about it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, okay, my eating schedule is literally all over the place. It's like, it's not like that time. Like, I guess during contest prep, it was because
Hmm.
I was like, oh, I got to make sure I don't get hungry too much or whatever. But
Yep.
like during the off season, in my mind, I just think of it as like, the only goal you have is to eat and don't get fat.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
like, yeah, go on.
but you also have a big appetite.
Yeah, that
I
too.
So I don't. And if I
Mm.
don't have those regulated times, I won't eat.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah, yeah. So the only
Yeah.
time I'm ever like really hungry and I can eat large quantities of food
Mm,
is in within that contest prep window, right?
gotcha.
That's it. Outside of that, once my body regulates and I put on the amount of body fat, like my appetite goes down big time. Like I'm just not a big eater and I never have been.
Mm,
So if I don't have those windows of time, I just will forget to eat.
interesting. I
Yeah.
had a client last week who had that exact same issue where like he didn't eat like 1 to 2 meals and he lost like 6 pounds in a
Yep.
day. I was like, what is going on here? This is like, it was one of those things I was trying to like understand because
He's a white
I've
guy,
never
ain't
had a
he?
client experience that before. So I was like, okay, this guy really needs to be strict on everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's how it is from now on. It's just like, hey man, you got to get your meals this time, just so we're kind of putting on that extra 20 pounds this off season.
He's a white guy, ain't he?
Sadly, yes.
Yeah, dude. I'm telling you. If I were to miss a meal now, unless I'm peak off season, if I were to miss a meal, my weight's not going to drop like that.
Yeah.
So it's not quite. I'm not quite to that detriment, especially right now. I could probably miss a couple meals and be fine.
Mm-hmm.
But if I am peak off season, then I will see something similar, and then I will drop a decent bit.
Why is that?
Beats me, dude.
Fair enough.
I mean, I could make some guesses, but that's all they're going to be is guesses.
I mean, I honestly love to hear them because I was so intrigued by that. Like when that happened, I was like, Jesus, I haven't had this issue happen before.
Well, we know two things. We know one, it's not muscle mass. We know two, it's not fat. So the only things it can be is water retention or food mass within the intestinal tract.
Mm.
I mean, I would argue that that's probably the only two things that it could be,
because nobody's most likely be water potential.
More than likely, and missing a meal arguably is going to have some of that food volume as well.
Sure.
6 pounds is quite a lot from missing one meal, or is it one meal 2 days in a row?
Just one day.
One day he missed one meal.
Yeah, and it was like the first time it happened because he's been pretty good all this entire time, but it was such a busy day that day, and then he missed a meal, and like I looked at his weight, I was like, dude, you were just at 230. Why are you at 224? He's like, well, I missed a meal. I was like, what? I was like, that's fucking insane. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It was so mind blowing to me. I was like, all right, man, I'm up in your food. But the thing is, he's eating 5,000 calories.
Yep. Those guys are generally like that. Very high carb.
Yeah.
Situation.
Basically, like 275.
I'm not quite like that.
Yeah.
But I do know people like that. I'm not though. Not quite that bad.
Yeah. The human body is so interesting, especially when you get like when you're working as a coach and you start getting like these different scenarios and issues. It's like, this is cool. You know what I mean? It's like, I want to figure this shit out.
Yeah. It's I literally have to. I don't know about you, but so I have a guy. He's a power lifter, and we're trying to get him. Well, we were getting him from 268 to about 252 because he wants to compete at 242, and he wants to squat 1,000 pounds at 242. He already squatted 1,000 pounds at that 260. He was 268. I'm willing to bet he did a little bit of a water cut for a lower class. I don't really know, to be honest with you, but I know he squatted 1,000 pounds when he was weighing in with me at around 268. That's what I'll say. So he wants to do it again in the 242 weight class. Need to get him to about 252 so that he can drop 10 pounds and then, refill back up. And I had to literally sit there with my wife and walk through every day and what I fed him and what was going on just so that I could figure out why he wasn't responding.
Mm-hmm.
Like talk it out loud. Like this day, okay, I fed him this much. His weight was this. We did this. It was this, right? Like, because it just didn't make sense. So
yeah,
now we're so close. We're like 255. These last 3 pounds are just not wanting to give. So
I'm sure it's kind of just, I don't know much about powerlifting, but I've been trying to dive into it, but I'm also a little bit afraid because I feel like it's so much more technical. It's so much more technical.
Yeah, I don't understand the strength world, and I'm not pretending to.
Yeah.
I manage this guy's nutrition and drugs. That's it.
Yeah.
So, and that stuff is easy.
Yeah. Yeah, like the whole trying to cut weight, still preserve your strength while doing that all at the same time, and then trying to total, like, bro, I want to learn, I really do, but I generally have no passion for it.
You know well, he has a separate strength coach.
Yeah.
That helps him in that aspect, and then he basically came to me because he wanted to lose weight. I think he started with me at like close to 300 pounds.
Okay.
And so we got him down to like that 268, and his strength increased because we did it slow and we took our time. And even in this like 268 to 255 mark, I mean, that's 13 pounds. We've taken our time.
Mm-hmm.
And I say taking our time. It's at this point, I want to say it's been like 9 weeks.
Okay.
But I didn't like, you know, some of these power lifters, they like crash diet really early on and they get most of that weight off. But his strength and his energy levels and everything like that has continued to progress, right? Like he hit a deadlift PR the other day and he's not on any drugs
Mm.
and he's down 13 pounds. Granted, as a power lifter, when you lose a little bit of weight, your leverages get better, especially when you have a lot of body fat.
Mm.
And so deadlift can go up, but still, like you're still hitting PRs and we're dieting down. So I'm happy about that. But hopefully in the next couple of days he gets that weight off, which I think it's like right there.
So, question I have with that. Usually in bodybuilding scenarios, to get that last weight off, depending on how hard that individual has been training during their training cycle, I'm guessing you can't just be like, hey man, rest up for like a few days or so in powerlifting, or also just take a big dive in strength.
Um, so for him specifically, he has a training program. So what I do is I ask,
Yeah.
hey, what does your next couple of days look like?
Mm.
And then I base his nutrition off of that. So
Mm.
like the other day, I was thinking that he did need a rest day.
Mm.
And so he sent me his weight and I FaceTimed him immediately. And he told me he was about to go do cardio, but today's a rest day. I was like, okay, no cardio,
Okay.
rest today. And we're going to do our high day because I have a high and a low day for him right now. And I'm kind of telling him day by day which one to eat.
Mm.
And so we were able to do that. The next day he had a heavier squat day. I ended up giving him 2 high days in a row. Um, but adding back in his cardio on that second day.
So he had a better performance the day after he rested. Yeah, when he rested the day after, he had a better squat performance.
No, that was so the day a better squat performance. Yeah, I don't know about that.
Oh, okay.
He had the deadlift PR the day before,
Okay.
but his weight was coming up,
Mm.
and so his weight didn't come up. It came up a little bit, like a couple, like 0.4 or something,
Okay.
um, between those 2 days of high days, and so
Mm.
now we went back low one day, and his weight dropped. It dropped back down that 0.4. Or no, I'm sorry, I lied. Hold on.
Okay, you're good.
Okay. So we went up like 257 ish.
Okay.
That was the second high day. It was up to like 257. We went one low day. It was back down to 255.2, which
Okay.
was his previous
That's
low.
it.
Okay. I wanted another low day.
Mm.
I feel like we would have dropped below, but
Okay.
that was Sunday. That was Super Bowl Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, please, bro, can I have some wings? And he's not a bodybuilding prep client. And we don't have the competition isn't looming tomorrow, right?
Mm.
Not that big of a deal. So I let him have some wings. His weight came up less than a pound, and so now we're going back to the low days. But yeah,
Okay, but what happened the day after he rested? Did he train that day?
yes,
And was there any like new significant PR from what his training program was? Okay, it was okay. Nothing
but it's
changed.
not. But his training isn't heightened just yet.
Okay.
So we're not looking at like his heavy loads just yet.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
So I wanted to say he said it was like 5x3 at like 80% or something like that, or 3x5 at 80%. I don't remember.
Okay.
But
Cool.
but I don't generally see all of those numbers. What I do is like a couple weeks ago, I just texted his strength coach and was like, "Hey, he's saying his strength is increasing. What are you seeing?" I was like, "I don't know how much I believe him right now."
Yeah, because it's like this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So like, I have his strength coach's number. He's a super cool guy.
Mm.
But yeah, it's really fun. Kind of like it's just interesting. I guess you could say. I don't want anything to do with the strength portion. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to have to program that. I'm good.
Yeah, it's just a diet and aspect of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Cool.
I'll help reverse him out of this. We'll reverse out of the diet slowly, and we'll add in drugs and stuff like that. And the goal is to maintain his weight right at that 252 mark.
Okay. So I'm asking a bunch of questions because I'm just like very like just curious about this. So one thing I don't understand when it comes to like competitive powerlifting, I understand that they have to like, make weight occasionally, but I never understood why like they shoot their weight up so like during like let's say their quote unquote off season. Yeah, there's like the strength gains that comes after them try to like preserve that. But like I wouldn't say weight is indicative of like
Strength.
neurological drive when it comes to training and strength progression. I mean, more times it may just hinder because overall leverage just gets a little bit tougher because you have more body fat on.
Mm-hmm.
So wouldn't it be better if they were to just, I don't know, it's kind of dumb and like hold their weight?
So what I have learned is that a lot of these people do these really hard weight cuts.
Yeah.
I'm talking like 10 to 15 pound water cuts. Okay. I thoroughly disagree with that.
Okay.
I think it's stupid.
I
I don't
think it's
think they
dumb
should.
too.
I think you do a water cut if you're within a couple of pounds of a weight class, right?
Mm.
Sure. Okay. You're going to be competing against a different subset of people where you can probably win. Not only that, but your Wilks scoring is going to
Mm.
be higher. Understandable. 10 to 15 pounds though, for me, I actually did that. My freshman year of college, I competed, and I went to nationals, and the day before I was like 8 pounds, 8 to 10 pounds too heavy. And so I dropped that 10 pounds in one day, and I did not properly rehydrate and get enough food in me to refill back out those 10 pounds. So all of my gear was loose.
Mm.
I bombed out and completely failed. Right. Now, from my understanding, these guys have a little bit more understanding of how to like rehydrate, and they'll use like IVs and stuff like
Mm.
that. But in my opinion, I think that it's better, especially if you're using gear, that it's better to just be at that weight and not have to do all the drastic stuff. But again, I'm not in that world. It's not my
Mm.
world.
Yeah. It's not mine either, but I've always just been so like curious about like why they do what they do. It just
I've never understood it.
doesn't make any sense to me because like I'm not sure if you wrestled when you were younger or anything like that. So oddly enough, fucking wrestled.
They do the same thing. They do these wild weight
Yeah,
cuts.
it's like crazy. It's like, but it's even worse under over health because they're just like younger kids, like high
Yeah,
school kids, you know.
yeah,
And then when they grow up, that's the only thing that they thought that they can do to help lose the weight. So they'll
hmm
do like those drastic water cut without never like fully understanding like the damage it potentially does on like the kidney and like
yeah.
everything else and the heart. So like, in my opinion, I'm not a strength coach or a wrestling coach or whatever, but from when I was younger and I was seeing people doing that, how do those teachers have jobs?
I don't know, dude. You, so wrestling, I didn't grow up with wrestling. Wrestling wasn't a sport in our town.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I've heard of kids like now that are talking about these aggressive weight cuts that they do. Do you understand how dangerous this is?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like
Like,
normal.
yeah.
It's
And not
strange.
only that, but like the less lean tissue you have on you, the less water you hold. So for one of us, right, where we have a substantial amount of muscle mass, we can lose a large amount of water because we have it. We're holding on to more. But like some of these kids, they're already a buck 20. How are you losing 10 pounds of water? 15 pounds of water?
Yeah, it was wild. But no, like yeah, that's something I kind of was just curious about. But
I don't understand it either. And I mean, it is what it is, right? I'm not the strength coach. I'm not the athlete. So um, I diet them down, and
he goes there and kick ass.
As long as my main goal for him is to get the fat off without his strength taking a massive hit.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a little bit longer to do,
Yeah.
but it's possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of just like gaining tissue or losing body fat without trying to like lose your muscle mass in a sense.
Yep.
But there's a little bit of water in there. Now you have to use the very tail end of things, so it's not too
Yep.
bad. Before we go, I do have one thing that I've kind of like sort of thought about.
Yeah.
It relates to like fat burners, especially clenbuterol.
Okay.
Which is this was on like one of the calls I had with my coach. Well, I don't
Yeah.
even know what you would call
I know
it.
what you mean.
My consult.
Mentor.
Yeah,
Mentor?
I guess that's the word.
Call
Yeah.
him a mentor. Yeah.
And one of the questions was just like, is it possible to use clenbuterol to basically hold your weight?
What do you mean?
So during an off season, we're usually eating a good amount of calories, right? Like a good amount of calories. So if you're in an off season and let's say you want to hold your weight for like a month or like 2 weeks, something like that. The question was like, could you utilize clenbuterol during that time frame? Still do everything you're doing, or even potentially eat a little bit more food, but then remain a little leaner and tighter by just implementing clen.
So you're talking about in a scenario where, let's say, I'm gaining 1 or 2 pounds every week.
Yeah.
And then you add in clenbuterol. Could it, in theory, maintain weight without the increase in weight?
Without basically,
Yeah.
instead of like drop into food or whatever, just to kind of like
Yeah.
maintain the weight, just still keep the food really high. Just do everything that you're doing before as you're gaining weight, but now just add the cleanse. So let's say you were gaining like 2 pounds per week.
So in theory, you would be burning some fat and adding some tissue.
And then still having like that alertness, that performance drive from the clenbuterol, but still looking leaner.
What was his answer?
Absolutely.
That's what he said?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because I think a lot of people just use clen for like contest prep specifically, which is completely fine.
Yeah.
But you could also utilize it during like an off season, or even just during like a bridge phase, where like you reduce the total doses and then you keep, let's say, test GH or whatever in there, and then you just use the clenbuterol just to increase strength performance, and you get a little bit of potential effect from the GH plus the extra water retention coming through. But now you're staying leaner, or maybe keeping the weight the same, but then you're just recomping with minimal drugs.
Run the experiment, Paul.
What's that?
Run the experiment. My only concern with that would be that you're on the stimulant during the off season, and then you're going to be on that same stimulant again during prep.
That would you have to use it further away from the contest prep.
Okay. Yeah, there would have to be like some kind of time off there. But truthfully, I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things that's in theory, yes.
Mm-hmm.
In practice, I don't know if it's as applicable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Like I don't know. I don't know if it'll work or not.
Yeah, it totally. You'd have to like run the experiment to kind of like
yeah.
But
I mean, it's exactly what I'm doing with Retta. Like in theory, this might work, but if it doesn't, oh well.
It doesn't.
Now I know.
I still tried it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. That's an interesting question. I mean, I know that sorry, one more thing. There's this girl on Instagram. I assume that her videos are posted on TikTok as well. The Scientific Snitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you seen the way that she talks about putting on muscle and technically maintaining in maintenance calories?
Well, everybody knows that, but people just don't utilize it properly. Like people usually don't. It's nothing new. Like bodybuilding doing that, you know?
Yeah.
But the key is like you don't need high amount of calories to be able to maintain or build muscle tissue. Yeah. You just need a level of energy substrate to provide for training performance and being able to help you recover. you don't need an absorbent amount of calories. That's where like the 200 to 250 increase comes, because as you add more tissue, whatever pound of tissue you add, let's say you go up by a pound, you can kind of utilize like, let's say 50 grams of extra carbs. That's not too much, but it'll basically keep you where you need to be. It's fucking main gaining.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's my explanation of it. I don't know what her explanation was, but I'm more than happy to hear it.
I mean, very similar. She's just the whole argument is kind of just basically like, if you are gaining muscle tissue without putting on body fat, you are in a maintenance calorie position. Because technically being in a surplus means that you're putting on body fat. Your body is storing away calories, and the only way that it stores calories to be used is as fat. And a lot of people do not like that. But it kind of made me think of your whole clean situation, in that, like, it's like, well, as long as you're not eating in a large surplus, you should be able to maintain relatively the same amount of body fat. But I don't know.
That's usually how I coach my clients.
Yeah. Let's not get fat.
Yeah, that's literally it. Like, well,
some level of body fat. Okay, I'll say this. I think early on in a bodybuilding career, it is completely okay to get a little fat.
Yes. That I
and as you progress through that experience level, you should be staying leaner and leaner.
Yep. And the only time that you need to get a little bit uncomfortable is if you need to make it through like a big, massive jump. Yes. But like usually people who are just starting out, they don't have any muscle, they're tiny, they're weak, they're pathetic. No offense. They're not pathetic, I'm just saying. But like, they don't have tissue. So the only way for them to grow the same amount of tissue in a rapid amount of time and kind of slow that down is you eat more food, be in a surplus, get a little bit fat, and then really trim it off. Yeah. And then you can kind of slowly gain that 1 pound per week over time as you get more experience with it. I make every single one of my clients get fat if they have no tissue.
They need to. I'm sorry. I don't give a fuck what you say.
Yeah.
There has to be that one off season where you just get a little too fat.
Basically.
It's okay.
Yep. And then you just kind of work it off from there. It's literally
Yeah. So, all right, dude. It's good catching up with you. Yep. Another episode done.
Cool.
Solid.
Yes.